Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the third edition of the Elets Diagnostic Leadership Summit. We have a very interesting panel discussion waiting to be unveiled on the need for accreditation for ensuring quality testing and outcome. And we have an immensely, revered panel with us. We have Mr. N. Venkateswaran, CEO, National Accreditation Board for Testing and Calibration Laboratories. We have Dr. Ravi Gaur, Principal Advisor, Spice Health, Spice Test Promoters Venture, Founder, Dr. G. Path Labs, Co-Chair, CI Delhi Chapter Health Committee, who will be moderating this session. Welcome, sir. We also have Mr. Anand K, CEO, SRL Diagnostics. Welcome to the panel, sir. We have Dr. Ravi Gupta, founder CEO, Saral Diagnostics. Welcome, sir. Dr. Seema Kochhar, Principal Director, Quality Management and Excellence, Dr. Lal Path Labs Limited. Welcome, ma'am. Dr. Vipul Bhrigu, Marketing Manager, Clinical Diagnostic Group, Bio-Rad Laboratories India Private Limited. Welcome, sir. And we also have Mr. Manish Airan, Vice President, Quality Assurance, Regulatory Affairs, Business Excellence and Digitalization, Transasia Biomedicals Limited. So I welcome all the panelists and over to you, Dr. Ravi Gaur, for the panel discussion. Thank you so much.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here on this ELET's third Diagnostic Leadership Summit. And with the theme of the summit is the co-creation of futuristic diagnostics. And when you talk about future, I think it's a quality which is probably comes to almost to our mind, the technology and the quality, and the two important things which is probably there in everybody's mind. Uh, I think it's my pleasure to have the distinguished and expert panelist with me, and it's my honor to have you all of you here, sir. And we have the very senior expertise, regulatory body official, the industry experts who have worked from the scratch and they come up to the top level. We have the members, our panelists who are there, who have vast experience in spread and working in multiple geographies at one time. Welcome to this session. The my I like to in fact rather probably give a small something what I feel about accreditation, and followed by the some questions to all of you, and then probably we'll take it forward. The providing healthcare, especially of an adequate standard, is complex and a challenging process. We all understand that. Healthcare is a vital and emotive issue too. Its importance pervades all aspects of society, and it has got medical, social, political, ethical, business, and financial ramifications. Uh, there's no shortcuts probably in healthcare, and there you can't really cut corners. Quality has to be absolutely, because every sample of life, every patient, whatever test we do, it's basically saves a life if done in the right way. In any part of the world, healthcare services can be provided either by public sector or by private sector or by combination of both. And the site of delivery, health can be located in the hospitals or can be assessed through practitioner working community, maybe general practitioner, or even nowadays we're talking about home care at home or point of care, remote care. I think in this specifically, it's become all the more important to have some kind of a quality benchmark on your sticks, so that all these wherever they are, whether it's home or it's remote areas or it's a mobile areas or it's a high-end central lab, the quality is actually defined and coming into one the parameter, at least one scale somewhere. Now, truly affordable but high quality healthcare tools and services are only means by which quality healthcare can be provided to all. I think that's what I think, what I feel. It's a time to put affordable healthcare for poor or the within our reach, or probably the remotest people out there, or the last man out in the post. Probably that's what his aim is. But if he can even reach somewhere midway, tier 3, tier 4, I think we would have done a job. Accreditation recognizes a lab's commitment to excellence and high professional standards of operations. So, more as we move ahead in the panel, we'll discuss more about accreditations and more about things. One thing probably has happened in the last, you can say, uh, uh, the, the last 2 years. And when you look at the search engine optimization of healthcare, probably what are you going to see there? One couple of common words what we normally see here is one is of course the COVID. I think COVID because I think probably everybody in healthcare when you put our SEO engine is a COVID. That's second is of course we talk about pandemic. Then the third is probably people talk about RT-PCR. That's a common language. RT-PCR is a test. RT-PCR is a test. And then next is actually the ICMR enabled accreditation. Are you an ICMR enabled lab? The common man is now getting to that. COVID testing, the pandemic, RT-PCR accreditation, and the enable ICMR. And of course, now we're talking about QR codes also as we advanced in 2 years. I think everybody is now very familiar with these kind of terms, and these are the top 5, 7 words which is common man's mind when it comes to the healthcare today. Uh, with this, the I think we have Mr. Venkateshwar online. Are you there, sir? Okay. I think I would like to introduce my panelist. I think, but first and foremost, we have, with me as the Mr. N. Venkateshwara, who is the CEO of NABL, and he has vast experience. They've done a great job over 2 years by making new use of technology and overnight accreditation, almost 3,000 labs during the COVID time, especially with technology which was not existing in India. Then we have with me, it's a pleasure to have Anand here, who's CEO of SRL Diagnostics. Welcome, Anand. Anand is looks after the great, I think, from the probably largest lab in the country and proposed with a multiple global footprints, whether it's the high-end lab to whether it's basic lab and integrating with the hospital labs. Great experience. Thank you, Anand, to be being with us. I have with me also our senior Dr. Ravi Gupta, founder and group and CEO of SRL Diagnostics. Welcome, sir. I think it's honor to have you here because I think you have, like you are a radiologist, but I think you venture into all aspects of diagnostics and performing from one place to multiple place. And I think your experience and insight will help us a lot to understand where are we today in terms of accreditation. Because the topic today is need for accreditation for ensuring quality testing and outcome. I think we will definitely like to have input from the radiologist because I think I'm from a pathologist point of view, but your point of view matters a lot because today it's an area of integration. Welcome, sir. I have with me Dr. Seema Kochhar. She's Dr. Seema, welcome. She's a Principal Director, Quality Management Excellence in Dr. Lal Path Labs Limited. In fact, she is basically the person who drives us mad because I think that's the quality guys are supposed to be really after us because they will not leave us. I think they have to be there. And if they're not there, probably quality is definitely, we tend to come shortcuts and corners. So I think great work. Dr. Lal Path Lab is also like she has a vast experience of handling multiple labs and multiple sites probably and putting them into one rope and making sure that their quality benchmarks are followed. Welcome, Dr. Seema. Uh, I have with me Dr. Vipul Bhrigu. Vipul, welcome. He's the marketing manager, clinical diagnostic group, Bio-Rad Laboratories Limited. And of course, we will definitely like to hear from you, your marketing areas, because what are the expectations of the customer's mind? Because not only the testing part, there are a lot of areas happening in the pre-analytical part also. Probably we can something hear from you. What really, because today it's again not only the analytical qualities, pre-analytical, even analytical, and post-analytical. A lot of focus is going into pre-analytical, especially when the home care part is coming up. The collections are going on home. Doctors are giving on home. We'd like to hear from you as we move forward. Welcome, Dr. Vipul. I can see Dr. Mr. Venkatesh. Welcome, sir. I have already introduced in your absence, and I think you don't need any introduction. Everybody is 2 years. You have been the hero of leading us and guiding us. Welcome, Dr. Venkatesh. Uh, we have the Manish Airan. Manish is the Vice President Quality Assurance and Transasia. I think when we talk about diagnostics, I think we can't leave devices people behind. I think they are the one who are making us more compliant. Better the devices, better the compliant they are. And Transasia being one of the you can say the global and the Indian multinational supplying and making sure that the technology is available to us affordable cost. With this introduction, I think I will straight away move to be already late to the questions I have put across. My first question actually will go to Mr. Venkateswar. That is, I think you have you have to have the first say and you have to have the last say too, because that's where we are matters of quality. My first question, I think I'll do the two questions I'd like to put across to you. Sir. Why accreditation is important for the labs or even diagnostics, and what are the risks and benefits? Not I think so. That's I think come back to it later. What is a lab accreditation for that matter? What is a lab accreditation? And will tomorrow's accreditation be different from today? I think you have had a journey of 2 years, because probably 3 years back there was accreditation was different. Today is something different. And futuristic from 5 years from now, a lot of things happening on ground and the point of care. So what will tomorrow's accreditation be different from today? These are the two questions I like to you to address and give us your knowledge and insight. Mr.
Yeah, thank you,
Venkatesh.
doctor. Thank you so much on that. First, let me take it up regarding accreditation is concerned. Accreditation, we tell in simple term as competency, a competency for a particular scope. Uh, Whenever we are talking about accreditation, it is really difficult for everybody to make them understand. But in simple terms, we talk about it is competency. Now, competency means what? Is the next question always it asked. So, competency means is for person, it is for the equipment, it is for the facilities what the lab is having, and it is for the environmental condition, it is for the whole set. The entire set of the laboratory is what we tell about accreditation is concerned. So it's a kind of recognition where the competency of the laboratory for a particular scope or a task is being looked into. Now, NABL as an accreditation body, we are a voluntary accreditation body. The purpose of the voluntary accreditation body, what is being set up, is on to ensure the quality of the lab where it is growing up. Now, in this particular scenario, a lab can apply for a partial scope or for a full range of scope, what they are doing it in their own organization. So there is a small element of step-by-step increments into the system or the quality. So accreditation is important because for any common man or any patient who is going towards or walking into a lab, they need to know the results what they are getting is reliable, valid, and correct. So for that reason, this accreditation plays a major important role, or the competency plays a major role. Not only a person who is doing the particular test needs to be qualified or needs to be experienced, trained, skilled. The entire system also should be there. How do I collect the sample? Right from sample collection. The technician who is collecting the sample also should be, knowledgeable, experienced, and trained for that. Same way, handling of that sample, how that sample has to be handled and how it is to be brought to the laboratory. And in the laboratory, there are again different sets of equipment, different sets of people who are working onto that, and then they are able to get a test results on a procedural ways or a step-by-step wise, and then they are giving a test results. And the test result has to go to the proper patient who has given us the result or who has given us the sample, and it should get correlated for the diagnostic or the doctor who is diagnosing them. So this is the entire set what we talk about when competency is concerned, and the whole as such if should be better. Then only the service for the patient will be right, so that again and again there is no requirement of retesting or rechecking once again. That's number one on your question regarding accreditation is concerned. A second thing what you asked about the futuristic way, how it is happening before and what presently it is happening and how it is going to happen in future days. Of course, this automation is playing a major role now. Before, when we were doing accreditation also, we used to physically visit the lab and give them the sample, and then they do the do the testing and we witness it. Even after the exposure of the sample, after the testing is over, post examination, the sample has to be disposed properly. To that level, we need to take care of that. Now, after this pandemic is concerned, we started doing online visits. That is from the through video camera, through geotagging, we ensure that lab's presence is there. Whatever the equipments they are having, all things are being geotagged so that the infrastructure is in place. And then the demonstration takes place through video conferencing and they could do it and show it. Future we see, I mean, again on the same particular note, a type of hybrid type of assessments are what it is looking or looking forward for doing it, so that we are able to facilitate all the kind of laboratories what it is coming up. There is another system also called as proficiency testing or external quality assurance scheme providers, who are providing a blind sample to the laboratory, based on which the lab gives the results, and whether the result is pass or fail. So the result, if it is successful, then they tell that they have successfully participated in the PT program. Now even NABL has started granting recognition based on this PT scheme participation also, where we tell it as MELT program, medical entry level testing program, so that many number of small laboratories can come up into that particular segment. So we are giving it for 3 years, and then over that particular period of time, they need to switch over to the golden standard of ISO 15189. This is what it is there into the cards. But I hope I could take out a small particular portion and could tell you now.
So
Over to
perfectly
you, sir.
fine, sir. Very well said, I think, because a very simplified language. I think one of the things would probably help out today will be like, in this time where there are so many labs, probably the earlier session we heard Patke talking about some 2.5 lakh or 3 lakhs, or probably we were still thinking 1.5 lakh, but only about few thousand accredited, and there is only few 20,000 or pathologists or even the qualified doctors out there. Technicians are not there. I think one important factor will be because when there's skill shortage, probably if you have a systems in place, you have external quality assurance programs in place, your processes are in place, you are more dependent on your processes and systems. So that probably your outcome will be better. I think that's, of course, skill you cannot compromise. It has to be always to be there. Continuous training. But if you put your process, a checklist in place for that matter, and we'll come back to you on the next round, because there have been the challenges. There has always been a debate whether it should be mandatory or not mandatory, and how to go about it as we move forward. With hear from you. Thank you so much for your insight. My next question goes to Dr. Seema. Dr. Seema, you come from the law lab, and you are actually the quality inspector out there inspecting us. I was a hawkeye looking into what's happening around us, and why this accreditation is sometimes, many of the pathologists I've seen, many of senior pathologists who have a pathology run lab, and they feel we don't require quality. Why? We are just like we are quality by ourselves. We follow all norms. But I think when you have why accreditation is important for the labs, number one, and what are the risks and benefits of accreditation? There may be, advantages and challenges for the accreditation, or the risk of accreditation. Can you just share your insights about it? Dr. Seema, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. I would like to, everybody, each one of us probably knows that 70% of all the medical decisions are based, which are taken by the physicians, are based on the laboratory investigations. So this statement itself tells about the, how much, there is an importance on the patient outcomes, which are based out of a laboratory test. Because the accredited labs, they follow a structured process of they have a procedure framework for operations, which is based out of the guidelines set by standards, which in the case of medical testing laboratories is ISO 15189, and we also have NABL 112 standard, which is guiding us on various department level requirements to maintain the quality. So it is ensured that the patient results have passed through various steps, various checks which are required throughout the total testing process. So thereby assisting in making the correct diagnosis and better patient outcomes. And it itself, I mean, it also enables trusts in the customers on the services which are provided by the laboratories, because the accrediting bodies, they recognize formally the competence of the said laboratory, which is a very, very important aspect. Now, as you mentioned, the public awareness, you mentioned earlier, the public awareness about the whole process of lab tests is increasing, and it has increased during this COVID pandemic times. The awareness around medical errors as well as the adverse patient outcomes, that has also significantly gone up during this time, and is also it continues to increase among the patients. They are very well read, they are aware. So, accreditation, I would say, is a risk reduction activity. It keeps the patient, it keeps the users as the core. It definitely keeps the patient's safety as prime. The whole processes are centered around patient safety. Now, if the laboratories do the all the things right as per the the guiding principles of the standards which I just said, uh, the errors and the adverse outcomes are mitigated, and they are not likely to happen. And if there were no standards, so benefits are also there in place for the not only for the users, but it also enhances the trust in the laboratory's own capabilities when they get accredited by a third party. And the laboratories do benefit themselves by having processes set around their the RCA and corrective preventive actions. They do monitor their own errors. They have programs on continual improvement. The accreditation also helps them to demonstrate the peer group comparisons. Also, it's a way of demonstrating their own technical competence, as I said earlier. One more thing that has come up during this pandemic times is the ability to extemporize amongst these accredited laboratories. The laboratories which follow a structured framework during the entire, that is a total testing process based out of the standard guidelines, they definitely have come up with, and they are more agile to adapt to difficult situations like the ones which we have faced in the last 2 years. So, overall, I would say that accreditation provides a framework that assists in operations and implementation of processes guided by the standards, which benefit the users by mitigating the clinical and safety related risks, and ensuring correct diagnosis, which enhance the overall patient health outcomes. I'm sure, I mean, I hope, do hope I was able to answer.
No, no, no. Thank you so much. You've, I think, very crisply and clearly defined, why it's important. I think one of the important highlighted point is, of course, standardization. Of course, that's a part of accreditation. But I think the errors, I think it's a, I think every sample is a life for us. Because that's, I think, so even slightest error can cost a life. So I think that's where I think if you really want to have, and the aim of healthcare is to make sure that everybody has a, the life is better, well, and healthcare becomes better for the individual. But I think one important point you highlighted here is the error, because today is the era of consumer protection kind of a thing. Probably if your balanced accreditation, your processes and systems are all into place, you have all checklists into places. Probably because you may be able to address, and because errors, it's not like they many of the errors are preventable. And some errors, because nobody is quality journey to perfection in any case. There's always going to some scope. But if you have your systems in place, that's probably laid down by the accreditation norms, probably you can address these litigations and challenges, and of course perform better clinical outcomes. Uh, Thank you so much for being with us. I think I'll come back to you because a next round of questions where we talk about you handling various kind of norms, labs, which is large referral lab and a small remote satellite lab, and how do we go about the same? Probably we'll have the second round of questions on that and come back to you. Then I move on to you. To come next question is to Anand. Anand, I think Anand, you have actually really started your started, you actually oversee a gamut of, few hundred labs, like, and you're well versed with the what goes inside the equipment, right from sample collection and to the policy making, and what's right for the decision, and what does the people expect, probably clinician expect from us, what from the lab kind of thing. You have a vast experience over many years, probably, so 2 decades plus, rather, for that matter. So I think my two questions to you: how does a patient benefit by accreditation, and how does it improve the clinical outcome? That's a very important question. The patient benefit and the outcome. What do you think? And now, second question probably can add on here is how to align accreditation requirements to patient and referring clinicians. I think these are two slightly different, but I think you can probably answer both questions in a similar way. Please, Mr. Anand, please.
Thank you, Dr. Gaur. Thank you. So as Dr. Seema said, 70% of the clinical decisions are dependent on lab reports. So that shows how important these reports are for patient outcomes. And that is a very significant information that we have. If you see in terms of standardized information that's available in any hospital hospital database, 70% of this data is also a laboratory data. So that shows how significant this information is. And this information is being produced by laboratories. And we all know in India, over a period of time, we have seen that there is a lot of trust deficit, not only between for the clinicians, but also for patients, in terms of how much of reliability on the quality of the reports they can place. So I think accreditation is going to play a very important role. And what we have seen is from a low number of accredited laboratories about 18 months back, today we see about 3,000 new labs which have been added. And we have, this COVID scenario has actually created a lot of awareness among the general public about what accreditation is and what is NABL, what is ICMR, apart from popularizing a very esoteric test like RT-PCR. What we see here is that people have started looking at accreditation, and that is more important now because people know that there's a value for accreditation. But how does it really matter? The usefulness and cost effectiveness of lab testing for clinical outcomes is something which we need to really look at. But as we all know today, accreditation is voluntary and it's still not mandatory. But when it comes to lab quality, as you pointed out earlier, it's not just about analytical quality. We have pre-analytical as well as post-analytical issues which cause errors. So if you take in terms of percentage, roughly about 60% of the errors are in the pre-analytical category and about 30% of the errors are in the post-analytical category. And it's only 10% which is there in the analytical category. And most of the times we have seen our accreditation focus is more on analytical quality. So I think we are now looking more into pre-analytical and post-analytical as well, which is a welcome sign. But in terms of how much it affects the clinical outcome, when you have an adverse patient outcome, if you see that the analytical errors actually contribute only 6 to 8% of adverse outcomes, whereas a pre-analytical or a post-analytical error accounts to about 30 to 40% of adverse outcomes for the patient. So it's very critical that we look at this aspect of quality as well, and as part of our accreditation systems. So the patient, the laboratory investigations are also very, very important for the patient as well as for the doctor, because it's not just about confirming a diagnosis, but it's also about when you look at some clinical science or the clinical management protocol, this actually prompts laboratory testing. So it's not that it is a sort of an interdependent relationship. So diagnostics and clinical patient management, they are in an interdependent relationship, I would say. So with that, I think there's a very, very important aspect for us to look at accreditation, and accreditation's impact on performance of laboratories is very, very clear. So even if you talk about a basic thing like an proficiency testing program, so what we have seen is when a lab enrolls into a proficiency testing program, over a period of time, over 2 or 3 cycles, we see that the quality of the reports and the reliability of the reports improves. So that is a very important aspect, and the doctors, the clinicians have also come to realize this, and that's a very welcome sign for us. Coming to the second part of your question, where we're talking about how do we align ourselves, our accreditation requirements, and how do we position ourselves to the clinical setting of today. I think it's more to do with how we are positioned in India, unlike the developed countries where there is a much more regulated market, where the patient doesn't pay out of pocket. Most of the expenses are covered by insurance, and there's much more standardized clinical care as well as laboratory systems. So what we see here is that we have referral lab chains like Lal Path Lab, SRL, Metropolis, and all that, and we also have standalone labs, small laboratories. We have hospital labs. We have public health laboratories. We have government sector hospital laboratories. So with such a wide range of laboratories being existent and a wide level of clinical care also available in different forms, so the expectations of clinicians also seems to be varying from place to place, in terms of how they want to look at the report, what they want to see in the report. Even though today internationally many labs have shifted to international units like millimoles per liter, we still continue to do on milligrams per liter for glucose and such tests. So that's because we want our clinicians to understand what we are talking about. So it's important that we also look at our accreditation systems to go with what the clinician and the patient wants in terms of how do you group the results, how do you actually position these results for the patient and the doctors to evaluate and understand these things. And what we need to understand is that we are working in a resource limited setting when it comes to not just about finance. It's more to do with scarcity and limitations of manpower as well. So how do we actually look at opportunities to credentialize human resources to create a much more robust system of accreditation, where we have processes in place to make laboratories function with the best quality practices and in a resource limited environment. So I think that's also a very important aspect that we should look at. And as we are all moving in the last 5 years, when talking about moving from a lab 1.0 to lab 2.0, so which is a lab of the future. So where we want to make laboratory service not just a transactional, like a doctor asks for a test and you give a report. So not a transactional relationship, but we want to have an integrative approach to laboratory medicine. So which is more outcome based rather than incident based. So when we look at these aspects, I think accreditation will play a very important role, and accreditation bodies also need to evolve and be able to handle these requirements which are coming up for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anand, putting a very, very relevant point from the customer point of view and the clinician point of view. As far as I still remember, some time way back in the 2011 and 12, we did some kind of a program with the NABL and created workshops across India. And with the industry partnership, of course, all bigger labs and NABL, we had partnered. We went around town, various cities, right? Even tier 2 cities, not even tier 3, like Indore, Bareilly, and some places, doing a workshop with the clinicians and the patients and the pathologists together. And to our surprise, at that point in time, the awareness to clinicians was like, oh, no, what NABL? We work with the local lab, we're comfortable with that. They probably didn't have. But today, the scenario has changed. I think what I mentioned to start with, when you talk about today, the 5 search engine of the healthcare is like top 5 word, and I think accreditation is now like everybody is asking about, are you ICMR and accredited lab? I think that's which has come up to the top front, and we should take advantage that there's a need out there. I think I've seen now patients walking in those of late much less, but I think the walk they talk about, like, are you accredited lab? Number one, are you? And even some patients are not talking about are you running controls and quality controls? I think it's time to get probably more transparent on it. Maybe, I don't know, it's some debatable thought, but maybe we can display our requests to people. Look, we have run our controls in the right way, and probably the IT can work a wonderful work here. And by integrating our quality platform, machine results and outcome, and making sure the clinicians also understand the importance of the quality, and we have reassured what's happening inside the lab is actually the best global standard reports. Thank you so much. We'll come back to you again for the next question. My next question goes to our, we have respected Dr. Ravi Gupta. Sir, you are been the entrepreneur, you are a radiologist, you have the multiple centers, you have pathology labs. I think radiology, what you mentioned is, I think, first important. I think I'd like to understand from your experience, you've seen over here, because the biggest challenge is how do you define the quality, number one. And secondly, the cost of quality, because quality comes at a cost. And in a resource limiting setting, how accreditation can help to keep the cost down, or can it come down or not? So, what they say is, doing the right thing is the right and that's probably the quality. I'd like to hear from you about this. Welcome, Dr. Ravi Gupta, sir.
Mhm.
You're on mute, sir.
Oh, right.
We can hear you now.
Thank you very much, sir. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yes.
So, according to me, accreditation is directly linked to the word quality. And unfortunately, either at a graduate level, undergraduate level, postgraduate level, we are never told about quality in healthcare. We are not taught about bedside manners. We are not taught about how to manage your finance. We are not taught about quality in healthcare. So the quality in healthcare should begin as a small, tiny little chapter at the graduate level. This is first thing which I would like to point out. But what is quality? Quality is not just giving a correct report. I slightly differ, of course, all those points which have been made by NABL and all those, they matter. But to me, quality is a total experience which a patient takes home. So reliable report, accurate, reliable report is an extremely important aspect of the quality. But right from the entry point to the exit point, like in a hospital, how long did it take him to get out of get a discharge note? Did my technician explain that patient what will happen during an MRI? So all this is part of the quality system, and quality in turn would be leading to uh, accreditation. And in no, I'll just take a few minutes about radiology, because most of the people have been talking about lab sciences. But quality in radiology is very different. Can I speak about it, sir, if you permit? Just a couple of
Yes,
minutes.
sir. Yes.
Okay. So we start from justification or referral. The radiology has boomed so much that many times even we as a radiologist are unaware whether a CT is required or ultrasound is required, or MR would do a better job, or maybe nuclear medicine, molecular imaging would do a better job. So justification or referral, shifting the patient from radiation modality to non-radiation modality has become part of the quality. Radiation is playing, as our CT scans and other things are getting better and better, but the radiation dose to the patient is getting more and more. So radiation is becoming a very, very big issue in JCI, but it is not so, still not so with NABH, but radiation exposure to the patient is becoming a very, very important issue. In laboratories, a lot of automation takes place. So you put up biochemistry, you put up hematology, you put up serology, except where you're looking at the cells, cytopathology and histopathology, the human intervention is much less. But in radiology, technologies plays an extremely important role, that he does an MRI of the brain for a headache, and he sees a tumor, or he sees a tubercular pathology, or he sees something else. So he has to customize each and every study, unlike in most of the laboratory studies. Interpretation by the radiologist is again another complete chapter. Another very interesting thing which is coming up in lab also is the use of artificial intelligence, use of AI in interpreting images, whether in radiology, cytopathology, or histopathology. There are large number of companies, even we are working with 2 or 3 companies. Large number of companies are working, and Philips, GE, and Siemens, all of them are working extremely hard. And they say that they have reached 95% accuracy rate in outcomes. I don't know about lab sciences, how much accuracy has taken. Other thing you asked about cost. We have to calculate the cost benefit ratio. So we have to calculate the cost benefit ratio. The cost alone would not go up. The cost to the patient has gone up not only because of accreditation, cost has gone up because of overall increase in cost of the system, of the healthcare delivery system. Now we are becoming more and more dependent upon uh, investigations, whether it's the lab sciences or imaging sciences. And so the cost of the patient goes up. I remember a time when my father would take me, when I was a kid, my father would take me to a doctor, the family doctor, and he would say, "Aapke bete ko pneumonia ho gaya, and you come back to me after 7 days and take this medicine." Now, moment you tell the child, parent, that your child has got pneumonia, they get an X-ray done, get a CT done, get everything done. You pay peanuts and get monkeys. So cost has gone up, but cost benefit ratio, if you see, uh, is far better in favor of benefits. So one should be prepared to pay the cost in favor of benefit. The benefits are many fold than the cost that a center would incur. Having said that, I would say that cost of the test is no measure of quality, because if you take overall picture, of the US, it is the most expensive healthcare delivery system in the world, with non-proportionate quality systems on the above parameter. That's probably because of legal angle. We also have to take legal angle. We have to take AI. We have to take tele-reporting into picture. Uh, NABH is still grappling with the tele-reporting part of it. So suppose I'm getting a tele-reporting done at XYZ center, and I have no control over the radiologist. The center may be in India, maybe outside. I have no control over the radiologist. I only ensure that they are an NABH accredited center. So, but NABH also grapples with the issue that how do they control the quality of these doctors through, comparison by in-house doctors and other things. Use of AI is another field where NABH and NABH would have to start taking uh, baby steps in the direction to see how is it going to impact healthcare as well. When it comes to cost in radiology, it is a very important part. Cost is a very important part, because unlike in radiology where we can get equipment on reagent rental and other things, we do not get equipment in radiology on this kind of rental system. So we have to define our outcomes and their cost. We have to see what kind of a product that I'm planning to have. I have to take a call whether my MR bed justifies the cost to the patient, or I have to define, now forget about 3 TMR, now 5 TMRs have been introduced recently in November. So whether if I'm going to put up a 5 TMR worth 20 crores and pass on the cost to the benefit, cost benefit ratio in radiology is extremely important. So also we have to see what kind of a market are we playing at, what kind of environment or the ecosystem we are playing at. So the quality has to be there and leading to accreditation, but the cost has to be kept in mind, more so in radiology than in laboratory, because it is the cost of the system is extremely high, cost of the radiologist is extremely high, and tele-reporting, use of AI, justification, radiation, all these factors, they do not come in lab sciences. So, and how do we try to balance cost to quality in radiology? By listening to our patients, doctors, and staff, by
Thank
measurement and analysis of the data set, by feedbacks, whether in radiology or in pathology. Everybody knows that they are an extremely important source for decision making. Regular review of structure, cost, and outcomes. So as the market keeps on growing, we keep on improving. And so cost benefit ratio has to be kept in mind, sir. That's what I would say, sir. Thank you. That's my
Thank
view.
you, sir. I think giving a detailed deliberation on what is quality. I think the biggest thing is how to agree with single definition of quality, because quality is a journey, and I think accreditation probably works out as something like, at least define some, the label of this is the quality, at least some parameters. But I think as we evolve, I think every time we have to keep adding more and more. I'm sure Mr. Venkateshwar is here with us, and I'm sure he will be really looking into, have heard you very diligently, what more and what cost, impact, quality, evolve, radiology. I think I'm sure he's going to come out with something new, and I can easily see the smile on his face. Yes, he got something to work on. He's a lot of hands full in any case. I think one important point you raised here is, I think that's, I think, point noted for Mr. Venkat again for you, sir, because the quality teaching, the concept of NABL or quality, I think if you can probably schedule some lectures and talks in the undergraduate session on a postgraduate, I think probably students were doing, probably that will help, because they really have no understanding of accreditation. Because if you learn from your school and you feel that importance is out there, you will start practicing out there. But once what we learn there and what we practice out there, I think there's quite a bit of difference out there. So maybe, some kind of a lecture series or some kind of a curriculum you can put across, and that's something which probably another homework for you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Gupta. And I'll go back to the next speaker, as Dr. Vipul Bhrigu. Vipul, I think we like to also hear, I think, from Anand after that, because there is so much happening in the analytical phase. You heard that testing is happening in analytical phase, and probably accreditation really quality focused more on analytical, but so much happening in the pre-analytical space and post-analytical space in the functioning. But today's accreditation is generally analytics center. What more you can do to cover these functions of pre-analytical or all lab functions for that matter? And number two, second question, we have signed shorts. We put a second question here to again. Can you present a customer viewpoint on accreditation from the customer? When somebody goes to the home collection, somebody goes for the collection center. What are they thinking from that, and whether whether right or wrong as a different decision we can't take? Probably there are a lot of stakeholders out here in the forum itself. But I'd like to hear your views. Vipul, please.
Right. Thanks, Dr. Ravi. Thanks for this opportunity. And I think my life has been made easy by some of the points that had been raised by Mr. Anand and Dr. Ravi Gupta, talking about the cost and talking about the pre versus post analytical. What I would like to say here is, when we talk about the laboratory testing or the diagnostic testing, it actually starts at a pre stage. So, the first stage starts at the test requesting itself by the patient, specimen identification, blood drawing, sample collection, and its handling. And then the pre-analytical stage ends with the transportation of the biological specimen to the lab. And at the same time, when we talk about the post analytical, so ideally it should be, so some of the literature which is out there likes to refer it as clinical post analytical phase, because post analytical is more of an abstract term. So that's where the result goes outside the laboratory. A clinician receives, reads, and kind of interprets those results, and then on the basis of that, they may make a decision on the result that has been received. So what becomes here pertinent and very crucial is that the clinical laboratories have responsibility for the whole testing process, including whether the test requested is appropriate or not, test requested, and then how easily and quickly the clinician can interpret it. Now, when we look at it this way, where are the greatest chances of error that are happen that may happen? So, the scope, as Dr. Mr. Anand previously mentioned, the maximum scope for the improvement lies in the pre-analytical steps, where proper patient identification, specimen identification, how well trained the staff is to collect the sample and then transport the sample is required. Then here, the challenge is that what we have heard from our users, our customers, is there is a shortage of really skilled staff, and the phlebotomy facilities are actually overloaded. Too much of work going on over there. So how do you address that? That becomes one of the parts of the pre-analytical stage. Similarly, there have been, multiple publications also that have come out, and from our discussions with the our users, both in the lab, in the standalone labs or chain labs, as well as in the hospitals when we go and talk to the pathologist or the biochemist running the lab. What they also identify is there are also gross errors which may happen in the post analytical phase, at the clinical interpretations. Clinicians may sometimes either ignore or overlook the results, and this has been also found by multiple peer reviewed studies, peer reviewed journals where they have found this. A lot of time in ICUs or in emergency departments, the tests which are asked and are released never get accessed. So these, if we look at it holistically, this comes to the point what Dr. Ravi Gupta was also addressing, that if an MRI or a radiology test has been ordered, is it really needed? What is needed? Is it a 3T that needs to be done? Is a 1T that needs MR that needs to be done, or is it a 5T MR that needs to be done? So all of this needs to be taken care of. So there has to be processes of these pre and post analytical steps. More standardization of those needs to be done. More training for the staff needs to be done. There needs to be more set protocols, SOPs for that. And at the same time, the accreditation agencies needs to have more detailed SOPs for those two. In the chain labs or referral labs where they have a lot of collection centers are there. So are those being put in the scope of accreditation? Are those being assessed both by the QC heads of those labs as well as by NABL or NABH, depending upon whether it's a lab or a hospital? So all that needs to be brought into the picture. So a holistic view has to be brought into picture, and my life actually has been made really easy by the comments which Dr. Ravi Gupta made. Now, at the same time, though we have been talking about this pre and post, what I would like to highlight is, though with the automation, a lot of QC softwares, a lot of QC material that is available, the proficiency testing or EQUAS programs that is available, detailed EQUAS reports which are available with a lot of different analytical criterias. So there is a significant decrease in analytical error, but still some errors do happen. And at the end of the day, labs are responsible for driving the clinical decisions. So labs do what I'm saying is, in India, labs are striving to reach that 0% error rates, and that's where we need to be going as so yeah, that's going to be most important.
Oh.
So that's what I would like to say about the question one that you said about uh, how about the pre and the post analytical errors. So I would like to put it pre and post. Uh,
I'll come back to your second question, I think, again, because I think we're entering an interesting discussion. And
sure.
after that, probably the second round, I'll ask you the second question. Before that, I'll come to, we have, the Manish. Manish, I think you come from, represent the diagnostic manufacturing industry and the devices industry right here. And I think one of the important factor is, like, as we are going accreditation in the virtual mode today, the everything is like virtual. But I think how are the diagnostic devices gearing up to top up the growing need of accreditation? Because it is something like, I heard our Mr. Venkatesh, probably one of the previous sessions some time back, talking about the labs getting accreditation today, and after they have all the equipment in place, and suddenly after accreditation the instrument is moved right, left, and center. I don't know. Are you looking to geo-track the instruments wherever they are? They're integrating with the entire system, and are we are gearing up for those kind of a thing? Because, and the real-time alert. I mean, and that is a good challenge for the labs also on one part, because if I shift from one table to another table, I think that also affects the alert will queue. But should it be 100 meters away, 50 meters away, some kind of a thing? That's the first question. What's the, how are you getting up? And do you think automation can address many of the quality needs? I think how far we're going to automation, and in any case, it'll increase the cost. Will it not, and how will it benefit? Quick, we have just 5 minutes. I think we are already running short of time.
Yeah,
Manish.
definitely. I will cover both the points. So the quality of the equipments we are manufacturing, and at the time of uses, right? So it is very important. If the instrument is malfunctioning even for 10 minutes, maybe it can result into 10 bad results, right? So that is very important that we are gearing up for our digitalization effort, where we can monitor the equipment. So we are working on, for example, digital twins, where the equipment is equipped with geotagging and IoT devices, and the instrument conditions will be online to us, and we can see online that what is the condition of the equipment, and there are alerts. So that process is already going on, and many of our instruments are covered with that. So we can we can plan the preventive maintenance, we can plan the predictive maintenance of the equipments, we can monitor the results, we can review the results of the controls, right? So this, it is not with multinational companies or the big manufacturing companies. Now it is all the Indian manufacturers are also gearing up for that. And we understand the importance, actually. We understand the importance that the test is going on at the laboratory. And if the machine is breakdown for one day or it is malfunctioning for some time, how it will affect the patient, how it will affect the laboratory, and how it will affect our own performance. So this is the answer to question number one, that are we gearing up for maintaining the machines at the customer end. Point number two, actually, what you're asking about the accreditation of our own laboratories, for example, or the quality of our own equipment. So we are having our own laboratories, and we have the accreditation now in plan. So whatever instrument we are manufacturing, and whatever laboratory we are using, whatever proficient testing methods we are using, or the calibration methods we are using. So accreditation, so first of all, we have to understand that quality, like you mentioned, actually, quality is coming by intent, right? So quality is not coming by accreditation, quality is coming by intent. And if the intent is good, definitely you can work, or you can put your control mechanism in place so that whatever you are doing will result into the quality. But how accreditation will help, as a manufacturer, I can say how accreditation will help, that suppose my intent is good, but how I transfer my intent to all the manufacturing processes, how I transfer the intent to all my laboratory practices, how I transfer the intent to all the people who are working upon, how I transfer the intent to the people's competency level. So that does not, or you can say it is very difficult to transfer, right? So accreditation will help me, because we know that this is standards to be followed. We know that this product standard or international standards to be followed. There is a third party audit is going on, so people are always aware of that, and people are always sincerely working upon that. So this particular thing will help, actually. So accreditation will help in that way, and that is not only applicable to us, that is applicable to our pathological laboratories also. So many of the doctors, for example, or the pathological charges are saying that, okay, we maintain quality, but accreditation will help, because control mechanism fail. Control mechanism will only increase cost, actually. So that's how the accreditation will help, and we are a very staunch supporter for the accreditation, and we are also planning to go for the certifications. I will come to one more point regarding the cost of accreditation, whether it is affecting or not. See, we have to understand, actually, the cost of accreditation, how you're putting in your books. So if you put your cost of accreditation as an appraisal cost, definitely it will hurt you, because definitely it will be a cost for you, and you will find out ways how to reduce cost. But if you consider accreditation as a cost of prevention, then you can cover a lot more aspects of quality cost. Actually, you can cover the cost of poor quality, you can cover the cost of lost opportunities, and you can also cover the cost of, or the benefits of getting gained opportunities, actually. So if you cover everything, then you can see that your cost is actually going down, not going up by accreditation. So this is how we have to see the accreditation
Yeah,
perspective.
perfectly said. I think, the quality will come at a cost, but unquality will cut a bigger cost, because if you don't,
Right,
track overall, probably in the long run, you'll have more losses as compared to
right.
the. So I think that's balance have to be maintained. It's a tough decision for the decision makers and the promoters, but I think somewhere that's a need today. I think one interesting point you raised is, I think, I like to, similarly kind of a thing when you talk about now wearable devices to your instruments, actually, like, routine tracking going on wherever you're shifting one device to another. This is probably a chip located inside the instrument, and that probably will make the life of the lab directors and the CEOs happy. They have a virtual alert. Look, this is a compromise. This instrument will be shipped from here, and of course, the accreditation authorities, they will like have a live real time record, and they can easily raise an alert at right point of time. We have running short of time, but we have just 1 minute each for all of you. I think I'll come back straight to, I think, one important question to Anand here. Anand, we know, like, a lot of things is happening in the pre-analytical space. We had a previous speaker, I think Vipul also spoke about it. What can we do? Because I think, should we have some kind of a cost program? How do you control that pre-analytical with the home collection or collection center outsourcing model? That's, I think, problems happen there. Just quick your views, anything on this.
So I think, Dr. Gaur, one of the important factors in pre-analytical, especially when it comes to remote sample collections, whether it is home-based collection or sample collection through other agents. So the most important aspect is how do we actually get these people trained, and how do you credentialize these people who collect samples? So because you can't expect everyone to have a DMLT degree, or who you can't expect how they are going to have a proper training. So how do you actually make sure that that is happening? So they may have something on paper, but in reality, do they really do the right job? So a process has to be defined on what kind of credentialization can be done to make sure that regularly and periodically we assess the quality of the collection staff, so that we can reduce the pre-analytical errors, and also the collection material and transport, like what we talked about, Internet of Things. We can also have like geotagging. We can also have temperature sensors in the transported material, so that we know that when a sample is moving from A to B, we know that the temperature is maintained in the right requirement. So these aspects have to be looked at, and these should be tracked and brought into some sort of a process where we'll be able to monitor them on a regular basis, as well as present to authorities or to assessing bodies, so that we can show that we have taken efforts to reduce the pre-analytical variables.
I think the two important points you put touch is in the training of the people who are collecting from home, and I think that's really had to be really done well and continuously done. It's not like one time, because number two is probably the temperature loggers or shifting, and because they have to be, we have temperature sensitive strips also. When the strips color change, probably what happened, the journey of the sample has to be tracked. I think some kind of a quality program had to be done. Getting temperature from 5 locations in 5 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours, comparing the results, probably that will help us out to understand sample deterioration and what's the quality of this sample which is collected from the remote side. Seema, I think we have one question for you, which is like, you are handling the bigger labs and small labs, and so do you feel there should be some difference between the accreditation of the big size and small size labs, some yardstick benchmark, or should be a different, NABL plus plus and NABL plus minus kind of accreditation? Although we have already have entry level and something, but something from Seema I'd like to hear from you.
The approach to accreditation may vary depending upon the local situation. That is where the lab is, depending upon the regulatory requirements in that location. Plus, it also depends on the test menu, availability of trained manpower resources, and not to forget that the accreditation is still perceived as a costly affair, because the lab has to invest in a continual improvement, their quality practices, enrollment in PT programs to guarantee the accurate and precise result always. But having said that, like what Mr. Venkateshwar also said, we NABL does have those programs. The BELT program is there. The in the during the pandemic times, there is also the NABL has also allowed the single test or test wise accreditation also. So these programs and these initiatives itself, these are very powerful tools, and most importantly, I would say that we have to create awareness amongst all the labs, all the users, I would say, the customers, the physicians, as well as amongst the laboratories, on the benefits of the accreditation. And basically, because the accreditation is perceived still as a the costly, labor intensive, because there is a lot of documentation required to take the accreditation, to create those processes, and to implement and maintain those processes. But the we could also benefit, not only from, I mean, the labs, the users, they could not only benefit from the ongoing programs, but also we could have the adoption programs, maybe have platforms where such benefits and are discussed and brought out. Also, their experiences, I mean, the lab's experiences are discussed in forums like this. Maybe they could, the small labs
Yeah,
could
yeah, I
also
think thank you
from.
so much. I think we are running short of time. I think one
Oh,
probably important thing is probably the bigger lab to mentor the smaller lab. Probably that can take care of many of the things. Probably my last question to the session. I think I'll come back to you, Mr. Venkatesh. I think that's what I said. We started from here. We're ending on you. Any insight and thoughts and on accreditation, whether it should be mandatory or something, and probably a last statement out here will help us out to understand the final quote on accreditation.
Yeah, thank you, doctor. Thank you so much on that. But really, this the way you have conducted, it's really hats off to you. I could learn a lot of points from different speakers, and what needs to be done, or how. I mean, I can take up accreditation for to a next level, or to provide the better services. That's one insight for me. And coming back to answer your question quickly, I mean, I don't feel that accreditation should be mandatory, because mandatory has got its own complications, because the way compromise will get started because of mandatoriness. So voluntary has got an advantage of, I mean, maintaining quality. Once I will tell that I am at this particular level, you can assess. So the voluntary mechanism will always help self growing, because once I tell by myself that I am fit for that particular activity, or my quality is maintained, I am competent for this job, then allowing somebody else to see that will really have a better say, rather than forcing somebody to do it, or make something as a, I mean, mandatory things, which will create other kind of issues on bringing out the quality. So I
Yeah,
will prefer a voluntary
and
mechanism,
it
and to
perfectly said,
achieve a
sir.
quality is important.
And
Thank you so much.
perfectly said, sir. I think it's a journey. I think it's a voluntary only, and I'm sure more people volunteer, and we look forward to have better accreditation. Had we had good time, I would have really liked to hear from Dr. Ravi and Anand more. Unfortunately, we have no time, and we are sorry about that. But you
So
have
can I
any
take a
question, Dr.
minute?
Ravi Gupta?
Yes,
You
sir.
have, yes,
Sir, I
please.
have just, won't take more than a minute. From these two mega labs, SRL and Dr. Lal, I got a question. Do you have an analysis of ratio of pre-analytical errors of samples taken from the main lab versus samples taken from collection centers? That's point number one. Number two,
Dr.
my
Ravi, if you
question.
could excuse me, because I will be
Yes, sir.
skipping
Yeah, please.
second particular things also.
Okay,
Thank you
one
so
question
much. We're
for you,
also
sir,
finishing in
Dr.
1 minute
Ravi.
also. Thank you so
Dr.
much, sir. You
Venkat, one
can.
question for you, sir. In addition to pass-fail system of NABL, can there be a grading system also?
No,
Just a thought. They
no,
cannot.
that's not the right approach. We had
Okay.
a lot of discussion in between, and that has been not appreciated by everybody. Grading will
Oh,
again kill laboratories' growth on quality.
so thank you, everybody. I think we will like to clean up. Thank you for being here. And I think one last statement I'll say: by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. I think it's very important to make sure that we actually go for quality, go for accreditation, and there's a stronger need now, and going forward, it has to be stronger. Thank you. Better labs,
Thank
better
you.
future, and that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone, for being here. And just a small token of gratitude from the DLS team. We would like to have, certificates presented to our esteemed panelists over here. So we have a certificate for Mr. N. Venkateswaran. Can we have the certificates, please, on screen? Thank you so much for your presence, sir. Dr. Ravi Gaur, thank you so much for moderating the session with such, precision. We have a certificate for Mr. Anand K. Thank you so much, sir, for your time and your insights.
Thank you.
We have a certificate for Dr. Ravi Gupta for your presence, sir. Thank you so much for being here. Dr. Seema Kochhar, thank you so much, ma'am. It's always a pleasure listening to you.
Thank you.
Dr. Vipul Bhrigu, for being here. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. And Mr. Manish, Airan, thank you so much, sir. Thanks to all the panelists for such an insightful session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Great. See you.
Thanks, Dr. Ravi Gaur. Excellent moderation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
you,
sir.
sir.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.